All right, so for my assignment, the demographics of my class would be a first grade class with half of the students as English language learners coming from a Spanish as their native language, and then the rest are native English speakers. And the theory that I used to influence my choice of book is the skill acquisition theory, and it has three stages. The first is like explicitly teaching or recognizing some new information or a skill. And then the second stage is practicing and having lots of like exposure to it and practicing the skill or noticing something. And then the third is being able to automatically produce that skill without much thought. Um, and so I know that Vygotsky talks a lot about how language isn't something that's always explicitly taught, as well as like those like Chomsky with the universal grammar and that kind of thing. How a lot of language is just implicitly known or like recognized through experience. But I think that teaching explicitly some aspects of language, especially grammar, is really beneficial. Like for English language learners, it's helpful because it gives them a structure to formulate what they're trying to say. And then for native English speakers, it teaches them important parts of grammar that isn't explicitly known. And that's very valuable. So the book that I chose is this Berenstain Bears reader. It's called Train Ride, and I chose it because it has a very simple sentence structure. It uses the subject-verb sentence structure throughout the book, and at the end, it's almost like all of the sentences follow that same structure. So what I would do is, before I read the book, I would ask the students to look for patterns in the sentences, which I know can be a little difficult for students to recognize, but I would just try and have them aware of that, get them in the mindset of that's what we'll be focusing on, is like patterns in sentence structure. So then I would read the book to them, and afterwards I would ask them if they see any patterns. And I would use this kind of in working in their ZPD with Vygotsky, just because I know it's difficult for young children to think of sentences in that way. And so I would help them by having them focus on like the sentences in this page especially. It's like the bears look outside. They ride by their house. They ride by the farm. And so it's got the simple like subject, verb, sentence structure throughout there. And so I would kind of help them and scaffold them through that. And then I would have the class, after we've established this like pattern, I'd work with them and we would make other sentences that follow this pattern together by involving the class. So I would say like, I need the name of someone in the class. And then I need an action word like jumps or runs or something like that. So then we come up with a sentence like, we had Sarah runs, then we can have Sarah in the class run around, and we can use that as her acting it out as a mediational tool that Vygotsky talks about to help the English language learners understand what the sentence is talking about as she's modeling it. Then after that, I would pair up the English language learners with a partner that's a native English speaker, and I would have them work together to create their own sentences that follow this structure, and so that way they can help each other and assist each other as they're doing this, which I think is really beneficial. The native English speakers can help them find words for things, and so that would encourage them, and it also helps them bring meaning to their own sentence structure and what they're learning. In addition to this, it follows the next stage. So after we've explicitly taught them about sentence structure, it's them practicing and creating this kind of sentence structure on their own to hopefully make it more automatic as they practice. And then I'd encourage them to come up with their own stories, sort of like the Berenstain Bears, where they use this sentence structure to tell a story. And then just to finish up, after they've spent all this time on it, I would have them have a homework assignment where they fill out a worksheet identifying sentences that follow this structure, and then construct their own sentences. And hopefully at that point, recognizing these types of sentences would be more automatic. So that would be my lesson. I know one challenge could be that English language learners may not be familiar with all of the words in here, especially because this is about trains, and that's not really something you learn about as a super, it's not a common thing you talk about really. So one thing I could do is I could introduce vocabulary words they may be unfamiliar with before I read it, and even provide the word in their native language too, and compare it, and then also using pictures to help as a mediational tool. And then, so just reflecting on this, I realized that although I based this off of the skill acquisition theory, I also used a lot of different theories too. And I realized like not every theory is very like they all have their weak points. And so by using lots of different theories, you have like a wide base for your lesson, and it encompasses more and provides a better lesson, I think, when you draw on multiple theorists. And then I also realized too afterwards that I was using Saussure's langue and parole. So langue when they're learning the sentence structure. So like the systems and the rules of the language, but then the parole, like their creativity and that kind of thing, as they're creating their own and finding variations in it. So I thought that was really cool that like we're using theorists, multiple different theorists to teach a lesson, and that they can all support each other in certain ways. So yeah.